What I've just shared with you is the nuts and bolts of something called the Austrian business cycle theory. It's the explanation as to why the economy always seems to be on a roller coaster. The economists whom I shared at the beginning, who actually did sound the alarm, well, the economists who share in this Austrian school of economic thought, they're the ones who saw through the flurry of activity these past 8 years, recognizing the economy was really a house of cards and correctly pointing out the housing bubble as it formed and accurately predicting its collapse. While most others interpreted all of the spending, borrowing, and investment activity as evidence of a strong economy, they were fooled by the inflation-induced boom. So, who or what gets blamed? Well, do you remember the scene in the movie Lady and the Tramp, the Disney version, when the two Siamese cats run around the house, destroying everything, while the dog is trying to maintain some order? And then the ant comes downstairs and sees all the destruction, and the cats act like innocent angels, and the dog gets blamed. That's what's happened to the free market. Lately, critics have been bashing the free market as if it had anything to do with the destruction. And yet, they don't even bat an eye at the Federal Reserve. If this had been a truly free market, the housing bubble never could have formed. Listen to this. Back in 2001, the Federal Reserve began pushing down interest rates to an all-time low, from 6% all the way down to 1%. This at a time when consumers were spending at an all-time high and the savings rate was near zero. And several of the years, the savings rate was actually negative, meaning consumers were not only spending all of their money, they were going and borrowing cheap credit and spending that too. Under these conditions, banks should have had a very low supply of loanable funds and the interest rate should have been very high. But the direct opposite was occurring. In a free market, a housing boom would have ended just as soon as it took off. When the first hint of a housing frenzy had begun, the bank's supply of available funds would have gotten even smaller, interest rates would have shot up even higher, and that would have been the end of it. The lesson here is that the interest rate is not some arbitrary number meant to be manipulated, but actually serves a purpose in the free market as it helps to coordinate investment and productions with consumer spending habits. It brings harmony to the economy. No matter how helpful the Federal Reserve's intentions may be, messing with the interest rate causes imbalances that can have disastrous, unintended consequences. My time's about up, so let me finish with just a few words about recessions. Is there any hope at the end of this tunnel? Fortunately, there is. To begin with, we need to understand what the purpose of the recession is. Once the economy gets all discombobulated, it needs to be rebalanced. And this is what the recession does. Resources have to be restored to sustainable lines of production. Labor and assets need to move back to profitable enterprises who are producing not only what people want, but what they can afford to buy. So businesses need to restructure, go into bankruptcy, liquidate all of their malinvestments, and the asset prices that were inflated during the boom have to fall back down to free market levels. And until this occurs, rebalancing won't take place. The recession just gets drawn out, unemployment will stay high, companies will remain stagnant, and the overall economy stays in a slump. You can think of recessions kind of like a Band-Aid. The quicker you pull it off, the better. But if you try and do it really slowly, you just prolong the agony. Any attempts by the Federal Reserve then to inflate its way out of this mess will only create a worse situation. Mises taught that it will often be proposed that we should stimulate the economic activity and prime the pump for more money creation, which will allow the depression to come to an end and bring about recovery. However, he says, the advocates of this method forget that even though it might overcome the difficulties of the moment, it will certainly produce a worse situation in the not too distant future. We've already seen the damaging effects of money creation, creating money out of nothing. More inflation will be like dumping gasoline on an already burning fire. Lastly, Mises said the economy will not be able to develop harmoniously and smoothly unless the artificial measures that interfere with the level of prices, wages, and interest rates are renounced once and for all. What he's saying is, we just need to bite the bullet and get it over with. The recession must be embraced for healing to occur. We've got to swallow the hard medicine and quit trying to forestall the inevitable. That is the surest way to recovery. Thank you.